drags, more entries into dominating the grip on my opponent's right arm. And the way I'm measuring that is by asking people to start from guard, and then I'm constantly working to arm drag. Even if I reach the position where I'm almost on the back, I'm happy to relinquish that, give it up, and not finish the back take, because I feel like if I work towards the back, then that's going to take time, and I'm going to be working on a general skill, which is finishing from the back. That's not what I'm working on improving at the moment. I'm working to improve my back taking. So even if I feel like, yeah, I think I've almost got the back here, I'm going to relinquish that and go back to guard and work on retaking the back again. And of course, this is something that I'm working on with my instructors. I'm discussing it in privates. I'm drilling it with them, and I'm analyzing it, which of course takes me to the next part, breaking out of your comfort zone. In Peak, Anders Ericsson says, this is the fundamental truth about any sort of practice. If you never push yourself beyond your comfort zone, you will never improve. I'm a relatively heavy guy. I mean, I'm not a light guy. I weigh about 80. I have a lot of pressure, which I use when I'm passing. I like to play from top. I do enjoy playing guard, but it's always easier to play top. So pushing past my comfort zone means playing more from the guard. And it's true that for any goal to spur improvement, to drive us towards improvement, then it needs to constantly challenge our current abilities. Simply always constantly trying to play from top, something that I already like to do, something that I already enjoy doing, something that my body is better accustomed for, I guess, is an unproductive cycle. It's easy to get stuck into just doing the things that you enjoy doing over and over again. And it won't. It's almost guaranteed not to enhance your skill further. The reason is you reach a certain point where any further practice of what you already enjoy will take you up maybe 1 or 2%. However, if you focus on your areas that you need more improvement in, then you can achieve anywhere between 10 and 50% improvement in an equivalent time to what you had spent on something you already enjoy, something that you're already good at. And stretching yourself is key. You can't really grow unless you are constantly pushing and stretching yourself. Ericsson also emphasizes, when it comes to skill improvement, that you have to break out of your comfort zone. It's not always by trying harder, and this is very, very important. Sometimes it's by trying differently. So you don't want to butt your head against the wall constantly thinking, right, well, I'm trying hard, I'm pushing myself past my comfort zone. Sometimes all you need to do is to try differently. If you can't move forward with one technique or approach, then try a different one, keep experimenting until you break through the barrier that's blocking you. And this links again to the next step, which is step number 4, being consistent and persistent. Consistent and persistent. It's really simple, but it works. We know it. Deep down inside, we know it's the key to success. But so often, it gets forgotten. In his research, Ericsson and the rest of his colleagues, they share this discovery about top performers. No matter which area of expertise, they always kept similar practice regime. The practice was brief, so in other words, it had to be intense, and it was daily, or in some cases, weekly solo practice sessions. So in these particular areas that they studied, solo practice was feasible, for example, if you're a musician, or parts of your sport allowed you to practice solo. In jiu-jitsu, it's not necessarily the same. So in one of them, he was studying adult violinists, studying at elite music academies. And he found that they averaged 1 to 1.5 hours a day of high-intensity solo practice. So it's not 8 hours a day. It's not 7 hours a day. It's not 6, 5, 4. So we're talking 1 to 1.5 hours a day of high-intensity solo practice. And the hours accumulate. These intense, consistent bursts of effort are key to maintaining momentum. But how do you know how well you're doing? Step number 5, seek feedback. Without feedback, according to Ericsson, either feedback is from you or from outside observers, you cannot figure out what you need to improve on or how close you are to achieving your goal. Feedback is essential. It's really, really important. You'll need it to identify areas of improvement. You'll need it to gauge how well you're doing in achieving those and how your progress is going. This could be one-to-one privates with your instructor. This could be a dedicated session with a peer that you trust, somebody who's on a similar level to you or maybe slightly above, and you're not just rolling and then after the rolling you're saying, how did I do? You dedicate time to come before class or after class where you are practicing that particular skill and you're gaining specific feedback on how you did in that particular field that you're trying to improve, that particular aspect. Or, and in my opinion this is the weakest, a form of self-assessment. Now, the reason I say this is because we are so partial when it comes to judging ourselves. I read the other day the saying that we are great lawyers when it comes to our own mistakes and great judges when it comes to the mistakes of others. You need a means of pointing at your strengths and pointing at your weaknesses and delving even deeper within that. Which strengths within your strengths are your strongest? Which weaknesses within your weaknesses are your weakest? And how is your improvement going? And you need that feedback, I think, externally. This is the only way to identify and work through trouble spots and to advance from your regular good enough to get by to true mastery. Okay, so that's the first 5 steps. Step number 6 gets forgotten so much, taking time to properly recover. Because deliberate practice is intense by nature, it's brief and intense, not just physically but also mentally. It requires your full attention. Maximum mental, maximum physical effort and engagement. It can only be sustained for a short time. And if your practice goes beyond the recommended 1 to 1.5 hours per day, then it's easy especially when it goes beyond 2 hours, real-life studies have showed that the benefits are reduced. So you reach diminishing returns from that, which suits me perfect. It fits perfectly within the whole part-time grappler model. Working smart instead of working hard, and definitely working brief and intense rather than working for long hours. I can't do that, and I don't want to do that. The level of intensity and concentration that you put into your brief, intense, and consistent sessions makes recovery time vital. If you feel that you don't need it, then maybe you weren't practicing with enough intensity and focus. Okay, so to sum up, Erickson himself once said, a lot of people believe there are some inherent limits they were born with, but there is surprisingly little hard evidence that anyone could attain any kind of exceptional performance without spending a lot of time practicing it. No matter what your pre-existing skill level. I mean, we all start at different level. That's a given. But if you put in the time and effort to get the proven principles of deliberate practice into your daily and weekly and monthly and yearly schedule of training, you are sure to achieve progress. I'm going to leave you with a quick quote from Professor Marcio Cruz. He's known in jiu-jitsu as Pejapano. In 1999, Pejapano won the PANS as a blue belt. Then a few months later, he won the world as a purple belt. And then a few months later, same year, he won the Brazilian Nationals as a brown belt. And this is after training for no longer than 3 years. He started training in 1996. Beyond that, he continued to win the ADCC, and he won 8 out of his 11 pro MMA fights. And he didn't go against your average Joes either. He has defeated people like Shanji Biero, Saulo Ribeiro, Roger Gracie, big names in the sport. He said in a recent interview on the Grappling Central podcast, fantastic podcast for jiu-jitsu, he said, I started late, and he was referring to starting at age 18. So I knew I had to train harder than anyone to make it to champion. Talent is important, but it doesn't mean you can't be a champion without it. Hard work will cover that. And to that, I would like to add that hard, smart work will cover it even better. Okay, folks, that brings us to the end of this month's podcast. If you have any feedback, I would love to hear it. You can find my email through either the blog or my own personal website. both of which you can find simply by Googling either the Part-Time Grappler or my name, Liam Wandi. That's LIAMWANDI. These two sites are also the best place to find out more about academies I'll be visiting, or upcoming seminars or competitions I'm doing or participating in. And of course, if you're there as well, it would be really cool to meet up. Thanks again to all those who download and listen to this podcast. I really appreciate it. And if you could go to iTunes and Stitcher, or however which way you choose to listen to this podcast, and subscribe to it, and of course give us a 5-star rating, then the next time I meet you, I promise to give you a hug, or at least a firm handshake, depending on your preference. Okay, thank you very much for listening.